Good evening, everybody. November 26th, 2021. Finally had the flush today that I've been saying was possible for a while now. We had been looking at this as sort of just chopping sideways, and I said as long as it maintains this bottom trend line, I would expect it to continue going sideways and then potentially break up once it breaks that downtrend line there. However, it did go ahead and just break down below, so that has given us some clarity here, and clarity is always good. So we're going to get rid of that orange there. This, to be honest, pretty much gets rid of this original diagonal scenario I was looking at, which honestly is probably better for the long term. So I'm going to delete that and delete that diagonal now. All right, and so we're looking for a finish of what should be this Y wave down, I believe. We've got a couple different scenarios, but what is still kind of making the most sense to me is that this is W, X, and Y. The reason being, all of this was corrective looking action. We had ABC down here, we had ABC up there, and we're getting more of a flush here in Y, more waves within this. But we can certainly have a 5-wave move down for C within Y, and that's what it's looking like here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, like so. So we're going to get rid of that ABC. Okay. So that all being the case, this Y is, just as a kind of a warning here, this Y is lower really than what we would have expected from the W and X. We've really come down pretty deep here, but it's still certainly within the realm of possibility, especially in Bitcoin, which likes to not necessarily follow all of the rules. But let's just zoom into the micro here real quick, and that'll kind of zoom back out maybe and see what the longer term looks like. But this red zone here is what I had said originally, as long as we stay, that's kind of the ideal top for a 4, and as long as we stayed below this 60,700 area, that was this red line here, then we would expect one more wave down into 5. And so that's what we're seeing now. We have not quite reached the bottom or the ideal target quite yet. We got close to it a couple times here. We hit 53.5, but the ideal target was more like 53.3. So can that be close enough? Yeah, it certainly can. It may have already bottomed here. But don't be surprised if we see one more little push down, and that's based on the micro action here. This could be 1, 2, very micro 1, 2. That could be 3. This red box resistance here is 4, and then 5 within 5 would target about 51.9 to 52.5, somewhere in there, kind of at the bottom of that zone. So like I said, don't be surprised by one more little push down here, but we really should be getting towards the area where we bottom out and finally start seeing move upwards. So this red line is the new line to beat at this point in time, 55.7, give or take. If the price can get back above it, it doesn't completely take this green zone off the table, but it is no longer impulsive if it does that. So it gets a little bit unclear. It certainly could be done dumping if it breaks above that. So that's sort of the initial sign right there that maybe the low is in. I still don't trust anything until we actually get 5 waves off of the low. So if we got something that looked like this, then I would consider the bottom being in. The 5 waves up off the low is what we need to see. If we kind of chop around here, this, for instance, this wave 4 took quite a long time. We could certainly just kind of chop around in this area and then do the final flush down before popping back up. If that happens, same thing. We need to see a decent 5-wave move up off of the low there before we can really be confident that a bottom is in. So that's what we're looking at there. If we do see one more low, I'm looking at 51.9 to 52.5, and that is expected as long as we remain below 55.7. Above 55.7, it gets into the, kind of convoluted territory of maybe it's over, maybe it's not, and we'll need to wait for a 5-wave move off of the low no matter what happens, to be sure. So that's what we're looking at there. As far as the longer term picture goes, I've said that this first wave within the third is like super extended, and this has been pretty ugly action, to be honest, all within here. Where did we just strike? That's the 382, I think. Or no, that's the 0.5 on the macro fib. So we went up above like the 764, and we're coming down to the 0.5. I mean, I had said it is not necessarily still going to be impulsive. It is still possible though, which I said as well. It's still possible that we go impulsive. So if we get a really, really strong rally up, this next move should be the third wave of the third wave, which should be incredibly strong, right? So if this next move up takes us, up above 100 or so, then I would consider the impulse still being active, and that would mean a higher target potential of, over 150, somewhere between 150 and 200 for the end of the bull market. With all of this action, I had kind of said that's unlikely, and I'm gonna stick with that, being unlikely unless it gives us more of a, more of an indication here that that's what it wants to do. But what I've been watching for is potentially this being a first wave in a larger diagonal, and then potentially a 2 down here, right? So we could have red 2, that could be done here, but I think I would expect probably, like I said, something like this and another flush down into the 40s. That's something we're going to need to keep an eye on, because if we're in a diagonal, it's going to be super choppy like that. And we'll have a diagonal upwards that's a larger diagonal upwards, looks something like this, and then we'll get a big move off of that low from there. But so anyway, all of that to say, I don't know if we're in a diagonal right now or if this is going to bring the impulse back. Kind of leaning towards diagonal just because of all of this chop. It's more typical of a diagonal to do that. And that would lead us to, lower targets in the 100K range, maybe up to 120, 130, something like that, if this is playing out a larger diagonal. But that's going to be, we really don't know those targets until more of it ends up forming. So regardless of all of that, this is a good place to start accumulating. Low leverage or spot buys anywhere in this area, from where we are right now all the way down to 52. I'm not going to complain about accumulating in this range at all, because we have basically 2 scenarios that I can see from here. Either we get, like I said, a 3-wave like B wave up. So we might be able to scalp, at a minimum, scalp along from 52 area up to 60 or higher. Or best case scenario, this actually does a proper 5 waves and proves itself, and we can then hold on for even higher targets and not expect a lower low then at that time, right? So just real quickly, let's go over what those 2 scenarios sort of look like. And you know what, let me just do a new chart here real quick. just to make it a little bit more clear. Okay, so I keep saying we need to see 5 waves, right? And 3 waves is bad, because 3 waves is corrective. So how do you know the difference is the question, right? How do we know that, oh, those 3 waves, okay, shoot, oh, that's bad. Well, no, obviously it could do a 4 and a 5 from there, right? Because you have to do 3 waves in order to do 5 waves, right? So how are we going to know? And the answer really comes typically from the fib extension of, like, once this starts forming the first and second wave, right? We'll draw a fib extension to the top of the first and to the bottom of that second wave down. And then the next move up, if it's going to be a C wave, we would typically see that stop anywhere in the region from the 618 to the 1236, like so, right? So we could see an extension as high as, that 1236 extension, and then a dump down, right? And that would be a 3-wave move that then leads to a dump. If instead that 3-wave move goes higher, especially if it goes to the 1618, this is more indicative of the beginnings of a 5-wave move and an impulse. We would then need to see, pull back from there in a 4th down to about the 10 extension, and then we'd see typically a move to the 20 from there. So that would be what I'm looking for. So once we get whatever move we get off of the lows, right? This is all conjecture right here. This is all just, example. It's not actually what's going to happen necessarily. But once we start forming something that looks like this, then we can draw that fib extension and look to see what the next move up is, if that's going to be just a C wave or if that's actually the 3rd wave in a 5-wave move. And that can give us kind of an earlier warning sign that, yeah, you know what, this actually is the bottom. If we can get that third wave move where the 3rd wave is 60% larger than the 1st wave, basically. So all of that being said, I'm still, as long as we remain below that level, I am expecting a move down, one more flush down into the 52 area, but we should be hitting bottom soon, and we'll see whether or not that's a temporary bottom or whether that's a more fully formed bottom in the coming weeks, hopefully. All right, that's all I've got for tonight. So good night, everybody, and I'll catch you tomorrow.